Paralysis on America's rivers. There's too much water. Van Buren, Arkansas. Marty Shell just wanted the lights back on. 19 barges bound for nowhere were tied up along the swollen riverbank. Dark warehouses. The devastating flooding that has submerged large parts of the Midwest and South this spring has also brought barge traffic on many of the region's rivers to a near standstill. The water is too high. As Mr. Shell surveyed the wreckage last week, anything approaching normalcy remained months, or even a year, away. To start, before this happened, my mindset was, what am I doing in the next month or two? You trying to stay ahead, said Mr. Shell, the president of Five Rivers Distribution, which sends products up and down rivers on barges. Nowadays, midsection, bay, and homes consumed by the bloated waters have drawn much of the attention. But flooding has had. The Arkansas River has been closed to commercial traffic. So has the Illinois. As a result, have struggled to obtain fertilizer for their crops. Customers have seen. It's like when you're driving on an interstate and there's an accident in front of you and there's nowhere to go, said Jeff Webb, president of Cargill Marine and Terminal, which operates more than 1,400 barges, hundreds of which are now stuck in the Gulf of Mexico or lower Mississippi River because of closures to the north. Barges are slower and less conspicuous than trains, planes, and trucks, but they can be a much more economical way to move bulk goods, as they have done around this country for generations. One barge can haul. We're feeding the world, basically, said Deidre Smith, director of the Arkansas Waterways Commission, a state agency. It's going to impact. Related video. Flooding in Arkansas, Missouri causes woes. The Associated Press. The breakdown in river transportation is just one more burden for farmers, who are also facing low commodity prices. Some held on to. Outside Conway, Arkansas, Chris Schaefer's corn sprouted last month and grew past.
Raindrops, drop top, top smoking, no